Hello friends, this is Rajdeep. Welcome to Learning Insight for UGC NET JRF Social Work Paper 2. And this is our Unit 7 according to syllabus based NET JRF Social Work. And today's video will discuss social policy, concept of social policy, definition, characteristics, factors, approaches of social policy, and then problems of formulating social policies, and then strategies of bringing social changes in social policy. So let's start, and if you are new in this channel, consider for subscribing. So let's start. Okay, what is social policy, or the concept of social policy? The term social policy refers to the general guidelines or principles. So social policy is nothing but is the guideline or principles which gives direction to a particular course of action. So it gives the directions for the particular course of action by the government or by an organizations. So it's a guidelines, is a principles, or is a direction for a course of action for taking any actions. It also refers to, in a very specific sense, an intended executed course of action. That means it's a planned way of executing a course of action. Now Davies defined a social policy is basically a statement. The statement either express or implied of those principles or rules. That means it's a statement, it's a guideline, or it's a principles, or it's a guidelines that implied of those principles and rules, and it's a implication of the principles and rules that are set by executive leaders as guides and constraint for the organization thought and actions. Its principal purpose is to enable executive leaderships relate properly the organization work to its objective. So it's nothing but a statement that express and or implied of those principles and rules for certain course of action and to achieve its objectives. Now, according to David Gill, social policies are principles or course of action designed to influence. So, according to, is a very important author regards to social policy, and he talk about that it's a principle or course of actions and that influence. What are the three things he talk about? First, the overall quality of life in a society. So it should be influence the quality of life in a society. That means social policy talk about the quality of life in the society. Then the circumstances of living of individual and group in the society, and first quality of life, then circumstances of the living of individual, and then the nature of inter-societal relationship among individual, group, and society as a whole. And finally it should talk about inter-societal relationship. That means individual, groups, and society as a whole. Now, according to Professor Titmus, social policy represents a summation of acts of government deliberately designed to improve the welfare of the people. So Titmus talk about is a summation of acts. It's a combination of acts of government and deliberately designed, means plan wise designed to improve the welfare of the people. That means it's a providing the welfare services to the people. Now, social policy relates to guidelines for changing, maintenance, or creation of living conditions that are conducive to human welfare. That means social policies are the guideline for changing, for bringing changes and maintenance and creation, and all these are conducive. That means favorable for human welfare services or for human welfare. Now, next, characteristic of social policy. So what are the basic characteristic of social policy? First, it should be ideologies, values, beliefs about individual, society, and social welfare. So it should bring about, it should have ideologies, values, and beliefs. Next, real world contemporary social problems. So it should talk about the real world and contemporary. That means the existing social problems, and then the approaches and actions of government and the state to social welfare issues. Again, it should talk about the government social welfare issues and approaches and actions. Then the political, social, economic context of social policy making and its implementation. Then nature and effectiveness of health and social welfare provisions, then distribution and redistributive character, then concern with weaker and vulnerable section of the society. That means it should talk about the social policy, talk about the poor section of the society or disadvantaged section of the society. Then social policy do not exist in isolation. So that means social policies are combination of socio-economic, political, and many other factors. So it cannot be looked in a isolated eyes. Now, next, factor responsible for policy formulation. So, what are the factors that are responsible for policy formulations? First one, that social action group, they are responsible for so formulation of social policy. That means they are forcing group. They force for the bringing change in the society and formulating the policy. Then plan documents, then consumer reactions, political parties also sometimes being reform or changes in the society that being the social policy. Then government laws and courts, individual reform, then voluntary organization, parliamentary committee. So these are the actors there, they are responsible for formulating social policy. Now, next, moving to the approaches of social policy, and these are the very important for the NET JRF exam, because most of the time they ask from the approaches of social policy, and these are very theoretical or ideological approach, you can say. So the key approaches, ideological approaches to social policy are new right approach, social democratic approach, radical socialist approach, feminist approach, and anti-racist approach. So we'll discuss one by one. Then the new right approach is this approach to social policy refers to as market or economic liberalism. So this policy is related to as market or economic liberalisms, a new conservatives or anti-collective approach. And this approach believe that government should avoid becoming involved in regulating individual slaves. This approach put a lot stress on individual freedom and liberty. So new right approach is talk about the individual freedom and liberty. Now the social democratic approach, this approach is called as social liberalisms and a collective approach. This approach result in providing greater level of welfare services and in regulating people's lives to an extent that is unexpectable to new right thinkers. The social democratic policy makers are more likely to impose taxes on high earning individuals and use these to fund on social welfare services. So social democratic approach जो है is called a social liberalism or and a collective approach. And this is something related to the welfare services, and it's ये क्या करता है is impose taxes on high earning individuals and utilize this fund for the social welfare services. So this is called social democratic approach. Now, moving to the next approach, that is radical socialist approach. This approach is referred as the Marxist. So radical approach जो है is refers as the Marxist, neo-Marxist and or conflict approach. Now Norman Ginsberg 1998 says that people who adopt to social policy makers make two assumptions about capitalism. So two assumptions क्या क्या है? First assumption, they propose that capitalist societies cannot meet the social welfare needs of all the members. This is because capitalism is found on and sustained by competitive individuals. So capitalist society जो है it cannot meet the social welfare needs of all the members because capitalism is founded and is sustained by competition among the individual or competitive individualism. Now, second, capitalism sustains fundamental social inequalities. So, capitalism again sustains the fundamental inequalities, that is, social inequalities and divisions that are morally unacceptable and socially debilitating. That means socially weakened. So, it's dividing, it's bringing inequality. So, that's why capitalism is sustained. These are the fundamental, and that is there's a fundamental, that I mean the social inequality and divisions of individuals. And again, these are the morally unacceptable and socially weakening situation, bringing socially weakening situations. So now next, moving the feminist approach. The feminist approach share the characteristic of viewing social issues from the perspective of women. So feminist is nothing but is seeing the or viewing the society from the woman perspectives. And Lewis 1998 indicates that feminist analysis of social policy begins to appears in 1970s. Feminists are in favor of women-centered approach. So it's a favoring the women-centered approach to social policy making, one which deals with inequality that women experience as a social group and which address some of the specific issues that are important to women. That means the feminist approach जो है is talk about the women issues, and it's a woman centered approach, and it's a viewing the society from the feminist perspective. That means perspectives of women, and to bringing change in the social policy for the women only, from women perspectives. Now anti-racist approaches is a center social policy goal. So on center social policy goal, and it is argued that effective social policy measures can be used in a positive way to counter individual, organization and societal racism. The particular focus of this approach is black and other minority ethnic groups. So remember, anti-racist approach is a center of social policy goal, and the focus of this approach is the approaches like black and white, and mainly black and other minority ethnic groups. And this is the center for any social policy goals. Now, what are the problems in formulating social policy or implementing social policy? First one, lack of political will. Then first one, the lack of political will. Then prevalence of coalitions government. Then widespread corruptions at each and every level of functioning. Financial problem, red tapeisms. Then erosion of moral values, financial problems. Then inadequate staffing, absence of training, lack of people participation, gross mismatch between actual needs and perceived needs of people. That means felt need of the people and actual need of the people, and or perceived needs of the people. Then delay in getting justice. So these are the problems in policy implementation. Now, strategies for effecting changes in policies. So use of mass media, creation of public opinion, demonstrations, public interest litigation, discussions, meetings and seminars, social planning and policies, building patience on government, then submission of memorandum, signature campaign, pressure groups. These are the, or action group or pressure groups. These are the strategies for effecting changes in the policy. So this is all about, and one of the important suggestion for you all, that if you are watching these channels, please watch the videos from my channel playlist, because here you will find all the units very systematically, and previous year's materials, and then important material sections video, that is special videos for you. So if you're watching these videos from playlist, then you can make your own timetable for watching these videos, and this will helpful for your near GRF exam preparations. So thanks for watching, and if you like the content, please do like and share with your friends.